Last episode, we established the Sumerian baseline, the first recorded myths, the five-tier structure running from the primordial sky through the great gods, through the intermediary beings, the En down into the city itself, a structure where power flowed through service, where the En administered on behalf of the god, where Inanna moved freely between all levels, descending, returning, carrying the May into the world, a living system, generative, aligned. In 2334 BCE, a man named Sargon ended it. Sargon was Akkadian. He spoke Akkadian, a Semitic language from northern regions. He existed culturally adjacent to Sumer, close enough to know the system, far enough outside it to see it as something to be used. The story he told about himself began before he took a single city. His birth legend, one of the earliest written political documents in human history, describes a mother who was unable to keep him, a basket on a river, a gardener who found him, and Inanna who loved him. Inanna chose him. Inanna gave him the throne. Sargon had no descent from a royal line. He claimed divine selection. Inanna herself, the force that moves between all levels, the goddess who carries the May, reached down and chose him from the river mud. The mythology was already being repositioned before the armies moved. He campaigned through the Sumerian city-states systematically. Uruk, Lagash, Umma fell one by one. The military record is extraordinary. 34 battles, every major city, an empire stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean, the first of its kind in human history. The conquest on the ground was almost secondary to what came next. After the armies settled, Sargon made a single appointment that changed the structure of the known world. He installed his daughter as En-Priestess of Nanna, the moon god at Ur. Her name was Enheduanna. The En had always been local, chosen within the city's tradition, trained inside the temple system, a servant of the local divine principle, accountable to the structure from below. Sargon reached past all of that and placed his own daughter, an Akkadian, at the center of the most sacred Sumerian institution. The move was surgical. Rather than destroy the temple, he occupied it from the inside. The structure remained standing. The authority running through it now flowed from Akkad. Every En and every city understood what had happened. Enheduanna was anything but a passive instrument. She wrote, in Sumerian, even though Akkadian was her native tongue. She chose the language of the tradition she had been installed to represent, and in that language she produced the hymn to Inanna and the Exaltation of Inanna, two of the most extraordinary theological works ever composed. She elevated Inanna above all the other gods, synthesized Inanna with the Akkadian Ishtar, gave the empire its unified divine feminine. And she signed her name. The first name Arthur in human history was a woman doing two things simultaneously, consolidating imperial religious authority and preserving, in the most permanent form available, the tradition she was being used to transform. That tension never resolves. It runs through everything she wrote. There is a shift in the cosmology when Sargon takes power. The En structure breaks. Political authority had been a function of local alignment. The En, serving the god of the city, expressing the divine principle from below. That relationship required no central authority because alignment generated order organically. Multiple cities, multiple gods, each functioning within its own axis of the structure. Sargon collapsed that horizontal plurality into a vertical hierarchy. Authority now flowed downward from the empire and appointed its own intermediaries. The conscious self level stopped emerging from alignment below and started being installed from above. The gods felt this pressure immediately. Gods who provided useful functions to the empire survived. Gods who embodied processes the empire found unfriendly began shifting. Transformation, descent, the generative deep, these were of no value nor useful to an administration requiring compliance, taxation, and military conscription. Inanna still moved between levels in Enheduanna's hands. The descent hymns still carried their full weight. The direction of pressure had changed. Ishtar was already forming in the space between what the empire needed and what the tradition provided. Enheduanna wrote in Sumerian because she understood what was happening. The question history leaves open is whether she was preserving the tradition or presiding over its transformation. In the next episode, we follow that transformation directly. Inanna descends, Ishtar rises, And the goddess of heaven and earth, who once carried the May into the underworld, becomes the goddess of war and desire. The May were not transferred this time. They were reassigned.